Salam, Tom Hitchcock, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I cannot complain. So it's nice to meet you. We haven't spoken before, have we?
We haven't, no, this is the first time.
Good, and what a way to do it with the cameras on.
The best way to do it.
Yeah, I think so. It is because it's when you learn what someone's about, what they do, what they bring to the world, and the cameras are on you. Yeah, it adds so much value to anybody listening to it.
Indeed.
A lot more takeaways. So anyway, that's my experience and my thoughts anyway. Whereabouts in the world are you, Salam?
I am in Sydney, born and raised in Sydney.
Same as me. Yeah. It's nice and cold today, isn't it? It's the winter's coming.
Indeed it is.
So anyway, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it you do with your time, Salam?
So I am a mum, which takes up quite a bit of time. I have a little 3-year-old boy, and I also run a business called Elevate Career Services, which I've been doing for about 4 years, just over 3.5 years. Yeah. So I have done some different things in the past. I was an engineer for 10 years as well. And as things happen when you have a child, things get thrown around a little bit, and I made some changes. So yeah, I've been really enjoying kind of the business journey at the moment, and a lot of the personal development that comes with that as well. And yeah, just looking after my family. I've got my husband at home, I've got my dear mother-in-law who we look after as well, and just juggling all the bits and pieces.
There we are. I like the way that you went straight in on being a parent first of all, because that's our responsibility to the world, isn't it? To make sure they're safe. We're bringing in some good humans into society, and that takes time. It's not easy. So I'm glad you did that before you mentioned being a business owner. So you had an engineering background, 10 years, you said. What type of engineer was you, or are you still?
Yeah, I did. I was a biomedical engineer. So my degree was in mechanical engineering, specializing in biomedical engineering. So I was a field engineer in the medical industry. So I would go around to hospitals and labs and repair and service all the different pieces of equipment and machinery. So a lot of travel. It was really, really interesting. It was quite physical as well. So I was, dragging a toolbox around and parts and motors and all bits and pieces with me. So 10 years across 3 companies. Traveled all over Australia, which was really the main reason I took that type of role in the first place. I really wanted to just get out there, and absolutely loved it. My husband's in the same field as well. We met through work. Absolutely loved my career in that space. But I also always did the career work on the side from when I was in uni. So I started off as a volunteer, as a job coach. So I would work with like not-for-profit organizations and help refugees and migrants with finding work here. And it kind of just went on from there. And I worked a lot. I was a bit of a workaholic. So I had my full-time engineering career, which was, as I mentioned, a lot of travel, a lot of hours and on-call, 24-hour on-call rosters and things like that. And I would do the career work on the side. And at one point I was also tutoring on the side as well. So I worked a lot. Things have changed now. Priorities have shifted. But, when you're young and single, you've got time on your hands. I always like to be as productive as I could be. So that's what I found myself doing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's an interesting journey. I want to delve a little bit more into what got you doing the volunteering into the refugee side of things, and I suppose getting people a bit of a leg up out of a bad situation. What was the catalyst to make you decide to do that?
I think it was quite personal. I think this work has always been quite personal for me. So I'm a first generation Aussie. My parents migrated here in the late 80s from the Middle East, from a war-torn country, and I was born, as I mentioned, here, and I just kind of watched their journey as I grew up. They went from, it's a story for a lot of migrants, but they went from being, my father was a secondary teacher, my mother was a school principal. And then they came here, they didn't speak the language, they started from zero. My dad was a janitor for 5 years, and taxi driver and a business owner and all sorts of things. But just kind of watching the struggle of being in a new environment and trying to find your feet and learn how things work, and the effect of that on your personal life. So that was the main thing, is as a child in that family unit, you kind of go along on that journey with your parents as well. So it's really about personal life and well-being. So I just found myself kind of naturally wanting to help other migrants and refugees. I wasn't able to do that for my parents myself as I was a child, but I find myself just kind of gravitating towards that kind of community and demographic, and trying to help them. So that's where it all started from. Yeah.
Well, I kind of figured there'd be something personal there to do that. It's the same with any type of volunteering. There's usually a reason why. It isn't just volunteering in general. It's the specific thing that you're giving your time for. I'm curious though. Okay, and you sort of come into one of my pet hate areas here. Okay, so we off the back of this, we do career coaching as another brand, what have you. And one of my pet hates is the university career advice. Okay, and I'll be interested to hear from your perspective, because obviously you've done that in early stage of your career as a volunteer. Now you do career advice as a career coach now. What I find is that especially the free advice you get at universities for students when they're finishing their graduation and they want to go to market, I always found the advice they gave was horrendous. It was really bad, and it was different. So these people were going into the market at the exact same time, exact same qualifications, going for the same job with the exact same CV, exact same template, exact same cover letter, whatever it may be. And you can tell because our ATSs will get full with the same CV. Oh, it's that time of year again, is it? And people were happy because it's free, but it wasn't fit for purpose. It wasn't serving anything, because only one person can get that job. Okay, and if you've got the same CV, it's not likely to be one of them. And what was your experience when you were doing that then compared to how you are now?
So yeah, look, career advice is a bit of a blurry term. So I'm very cautious in what I do in my business. For me, myself, when I started uni, I barely put thought into my career, honestly. I grew up in a very kind of academically focused family, so it was all about study, and you get a professional career, and whatever the career is okay, as long as it's a professional career and it's going to pay the bills, and that was all good. So I didn't really think about it any more than I wanted to do engineering because I was a female and I just wanted to challenge the status quo a little bit. But I never sought out career advice myself when I finished university either. Now, currently, and even in the volunteering that I did at that time with that demographic, with refugees and migrants who are seeking any kind of employment, it's not about, so much about career choices and your dreams and your ideal roles. It's about, I need to pay the bills right now. So it's all, it was very much more around completely like creating your job application documents and how you're going to interview and that kind of thing. Moving forward now in my business, I actually don't offer career coaching services. We are focused on writing your job application documents, resumes, cover letters, selection criteria, LinkedIn profiles. We do interview coaching as well, but I actually turn clients away at times as I tell them that you need to have somewhat of a narrowed down goal, and then we can work with you. And if you would like assistance with actually working out what type of role you should apply for in the job market, that's a different type of service. Yeah. Because firstly, it's not my area of expertise, but I also feel that is such a massive responsibility. And I feel that an individual needs to do that digging and that soul searching themselves. And obviously you can get assistance with working out where your skill set sits and that kind of thing, but that is not something that I delve into. I am more on the side of when somebody is in a circumstance that they need a different type of role, or they need to shift, or whatever it may be that suits their life at that time, we will help you get there. It's, how are you going to put yourself out in the job market to find your ideal role, rather than actually defining the ideal role for them. And I do agree with you very much that I've always said, so we work with clients from graduate to C-suite, but the graduate tier is our smallest client demographic in our clientele. And I feel that they would benefit from the services the most. But I think because they haven't perhaps started their career journey, they don't recognise the importance of how you brand yourself and how you pitch yourself. So they're not necessarily, it's a hard sell at that stage of your career. But I do feel like that's where the most value will be gained. And I've tried before to kind of, I've run workshops and things at universities in Sydney. But yeah, it is definitely something that I wish would be more integrated into universities and the career centres and the career advice that they give.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because we did the same thing. I'd go in, I'd do workshops with different universities and cohorts, if not hundreds of students, always well received and what have you. But I did find the principles and the mechanisms applied to a CV, just specifically, that we'd use for C-suite is far more impactful for those that are entering their career post-graduation. And there's lots more of them, but they need it more because they don't necessarily have the experience yet, which is the golden ticket, and for all graduates at the same time, you need something different to go there. And I always found it strange that someone would do 2, 3, 4 years study, X amount of $1,000 of debt, but then won't pay X amount for their CV. I was like, come on, guys, this is the final step, final little thing you need to do.
It is, yeah.
It's a drop in the ocean what you've just put in. Let's make this count. And it was quite frustrating, but I believe the reason for this is not really their fault. It's that they've got it for free. And they've got it for free, so they're going to go with the free service rather than pay for something, as most people would do. The rationality makes sense. But they're unbeknown to them, so they don't realise the other side of the fence is that's not necessarily going to work. It'll work for one person out of 100. Okay, so that's not a good gamble,
Yeah, indeed. And it kind of goes across the board that there isn't a one size fits all, because it is, resumes are kind of traditionally thought of as these really kind of passive portfolios of sorts. Here's all my job titles and my responsibilities and my qualifications, and you connect the dots. But what they really should be is like a marketing brochure. You're actively selling yourself, selling your skill set to an employer, and it is unique to every individual, including graduates who may not even have any professional work experience, but they will have participated in activities. They will have done things that are worthwhile to sell, but they don't recognise it. So for graduates, it might be being part of societies and organising events, or the way that they handle things in group tasks, the way that they present, their tasks to an audience, their personal projects. There's just so many factors that could be important for them to sell without them recognising it, and it is unique to every individual. So as a graduate coming through this cohort where everybody's, maybe got really limited experience and graduating with the same degree, those are the things that make the difference, and those are the things that are usually excluded. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more. We're on the same hymn sheet there, I think, that's for sure. And just out of curiosity, how do you feel your years of being an engineer has paid off for you being in business and working with people's career steps?
Yeah, it's really funny in so many ways, but it's really funny because in this career space, a lot of business owners who are in this kind of resume writing, this career space, have come from a HR or recruitment background of sorts, or maybe they were in the corporate role and they specialize just in that particular industry, whereas we work across all industries. But people are often surprised to hear that I come from an engineering background, especially in a business that writing is a massive part of, and engineers are not necessarily known for communication and language and relationship building. They're kind of typically known to be a bit reclusive, and I was in many ways, to be honest. I wasn't a great socially. I had to learn that through practice, but there are so many transferable skills that have come across from engineering, and people laugh when I say that, but it is really the reality. And one element of the engineering career that has been important is me being in a workplace and understanding how relationships work with colleagues, with clients, with management, how politics and dynamics come into play in a corporate environment, and being able to support people who are having challenges in their career, and be able to talk through and empathize and understand that. So being in that kind of environment has been beneficial in that way. But in terms of personally as a skill set, being able to speak to people and adapt communication styles with all different type of people, different characters, different personalities, all walks of life. As a field engineer, every day was at a different site. Every day was with different people. I would talk to lab staff and hospital staff, or I would talk to their management, the management team. But essentially, troubleshooting a piece of equipment, for example, I need to question the customer. There needs to be effective questioning to understand what the issue has been and gather that information from them and make an assessment. And a huge part of what I do now and what my writers do on the team is questioning. It's about a conversation with the customer, engaging with them, pulling out information, helping them communicate. And then the other thing is, which is why I think I chose this type of business, is I have a very practical mindset. I'm very kind of rational and systematic and logical. And to me, in terms of careers and the struggles that people have with finding fulfilling roles and moving between roles that meet their different needs, that is the practical step of landing the role that you want, is your job application documents. And there is networking and there are referrals, and that absolutely happens. Although even in that case, a lot of the time you still need to pitch yourself with your job application documents and your interview performance as well. So to me, that was like the low-hanging fruit that most people were missing and not investing in fully, to kind of actually land those interview opportunities and find those roles. So yeah, that kind of practicality. And it also comes into play with actually creating the documents and being systematic about where information goes, and being a bit rational about what to include, what to exclude, not having too much fluff in there. You're not it's not creative writing, it's fact-based writing to me. So yeah, all of those elements have definitely come into play.
Okay, all right. So what would, in your opinion then, do you think the future holds in the space of CVs and how people present themselves for interview? Because there's plenty of changes there. The CV's been a mainstay. I was there when it used to be on paper, obviously showing my age there. So it does progress, but the CV seems to be pretty solid. But where do you reckon, just having a guess, where things will be in 20 years' time?
In 20 years? It's a great question. I mean, there has been a bit of a rise in the video resumes. It is still a little bit scarce, in my opinion, in Australia only. I work with it within the Australian job market only, so it tends to be the larger, global organisations that have involved that in their recruitment process. LinkedIn is obviously a big element as well. At the moment, it's kind of complementary to your job application documents and the networking element there. But I honestly don't know. I can't see, I can't predict what alternative there would be. I mean, through all the technology that has come out, ATS systems and networking tools and LinkedIn, excuse me, and video resumes and all of this, resumes are still the primary form of submitting your application and landing interviews. So I think it's going to be quite some time before that's distilled out. I don't know. Do you have an alternative view?
I've had a few conversations about this. I've actually, oddly enough, I put this to an assignment to a group of students from the University of New South Wales once, and they really struggled. They really couldn't work out where this is going next. And they're throwing, at the time, this is pre-COVID, they're throwing QR codes in there. They were going into all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, what happens is when hiring managers, business owners, and what have you, review applications, they're doing a risk analysis. They're doing a credit check, if you like, to see if this person's going to work out or not. Is it going to cost them money to hire this person? Are they going to, if they're middle management, are they going to look bad for that decision? So they're looking for those gaps. They're looking for the change of heart and things. And that's exactly what happens when people do a credit check. Are we going to give this person a mortgage or not? It's the same thing. And so with that in mind, there's a blockchain component to it. There's a few things where this could go to really verify if this person is genuine and the real deal. And like you said, LinkedIn is complementary, but the good thing about LinkedIn is you check it, does it marry up to the CV? If it doesn't, then the red flag comes up. So it's a validation tool, which talks to that as well. So listen, I don't have the answer. I wish I did have a crystal ball. If I had a crystal ball, I'd be very rich right now. And I know it's got a lot of stress.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think with LinkedIn as well, I think it gives a bit of credibility as well for an employer to see your network, see who you're engaging with and the type of content that you're interested in and things like that. There is also this factor of ATS, applicant tracking systems. That's kind of all the buzz at the moment. These systems that are like databases, I suppose, that have, some of them have scoring functions. I think there's hundreds of types of ATS systems, but there are some of them that have scoring functions. And there is a common perception that organizations are using these tools to automatically screen your resume and reject you. I think there's a bit of kind of fear marketing that's put out there that gives a bit of misinformation to job seekers and professionals. They're not necessarily being used that way for the most part at the moment. If it will be the case down the track, perhaps. I know that there is a big kind of across many middle to large organizations at the moment, there's a push to reduce resources to HR and recruitment processes. So it's becoming more fast-paced. And a part of that may be, using these software systems to automatically screen candidates. I hope not, because I don't think I don't think the systems are there yet to be able to do that adequately. But yeah, maybe something to keep an eye on.
We use ATSs, so we've been talking about ATSs for quite some years now. And ATSs does factor into the CV, absolutely. But not for the reasons that you're saying. You're quite right to say that they're probably not the scoring and that it may or may not be used. How much it's going to impact an individual, it's debatable. So I'll be very cynical of that, quite rightly so. But how it uses it with the parsing and how it sits there when people got thousands of people sitting there, the parsing of that is vital. And if we get that wrong, then your CV is hidden. Just like SEO, same thing as a business, and they want to be paid one on Google,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we usually tell people who are concerned about ATS is to format your document for ATS so that it can be parsed appropriately, which, when people start to put in QR codes and graphics and images and photos and things like that, it can disrupt that process a little bit. But the content should really be written for the human reader. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing as well, which you pointed out, is obviously we're talking about if there's an automatic streamlined component, which is, here we are, it spits out the right people based on a CV. The technology actually is there for that, which is good. The issue is the CV themselves. So as you know, more often than not, we do find there's a bad CV, good candidate, great CV, bad candidate.
Right.
So the disparity is in the uniformity of the CV and how it's presented and how accurate it is. So if it's broken at that point, and it doesn't matter how sophisticated the tool is after, it's only as good as the data that goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah, certainly. And that's why, you know, we usually, you know, we focus on being authentic. You know, there's a lot of keyword stuffing and fabrication and AI use and things like that. And people creating their resumes and using these tools to create their resumes. But the best thing that you can possibly do for yourself is, once you know what type of role you want to target, you pitch yourself authentically. What are my actual achievements? What are my actual highlights? What is my skill set? What are my actual characteristics? And communicate that strongly. And not only is that going to attract the attention of the reader and get you into an interview, but it also means that the job that you land will be fitting. It will be right for you. It will be ideal for you at that time, and you're more likely to be fulfilled, and that role is more likely to meet your needs. And that's essentially the crux of why I do this work. It's not about your career. Ironically, it's not about, you know, you're climbing the ladder or you know, what job title you're going to have. It's about your personal life, and people go through so many changes through their life journey, and they need different things from their professional work, or they need different things from their careers through their life. That might be climbing the ladder, it might be shifting industry, it might be the conditions that are more important, you know, so whatever your priorities are at that time, to learn how to pitch yourself for that role that you need is so invaluable. And it's kind of using the system, you know, or playing the game a little bit. I don't like that we need to do this to find the conditions that we deserve, but if you learn how to do it, you're going to have a better shot, you know. So
yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so anybody listening to your episode, they're sold on what you do for a business, they like your story. What's your preferred method for them to reach out to you on?
LinkedIn is fantastic. I love LinkedIn because it's so much more personal. So they can look me up on LinkedIn and send me a message. I love to have Zoom chats and meet different people all the time as well. So that's great. And then there's the website as well. elevatecareerservices.com.au is great.
Fantastic. All right, well, that's us on a wrap now. So thanks again for your time, and there's some good insights there for people for sure.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.